Please remember to sign in because we are counting hours of meetings so that we can get our vote count correct and see who's eligible for voting. So that's how we count it, is making sure you're signing in. And we are going to be voting today on something, so we'll talk a little bit later about how we do our voting. But for now, we have several new faces tonight, so we're gonna go around the room and do a brief introduction. I'm Judy Anderson. I'm co-chair. I don't have another chair yet, but Eurista has left me. We'll have one soon, I hope. Co-chair of the council, and I'm a private citizen that just is interested in fire reduction, fuel mitigation. Kristen?
Kristen Mortensen, I'm Community Preparedness and Fire Prevention Specialist for the DNRC Southwestern Land Office, and I'm doing my best to step in for Eurista until we fill. And just as an FYI, we have flown or advertised that position, and so hopefully within the next month or two, we'll have a new fire adapted communities coordinator to fill this seat and do a much better job than I'm doing, so.
You're doing great. Ken.
You're up, Ken.
Ben Brewer, Lawrence Fire, and then I also am the team leader for the almost completed community wildfire protection plan effort, and a representative on the core team for that effort from Fire and Richmond.
Hi, Christina Ragsdale. My husband and I run a ranch in the event center here in Brooklyn, just representing myself.
I'm Byron Barney with Good Resource Conservation and Development. And I'm the lead forester for the time being. We advertised for a position to replace me. And so with that, I'd like to introduce the upcoming lead forester, Josh Smith. And I'm gonna let Josh tell you about him.
Yeah, so I've done a couple things, environmental education contractor, do a lot of work for DNRC, and do a lot of tree planting events in different communities in Montana, and then also fire mitigation business. I've done hundreds of acres across western Montana, and then also timber fallout for a couple of years.
So, yeah, Josh is gonna be coming to work for RCND next Monday. And he is a permanent employee of RCND, not a part-time. Our condolences.
His address for sympathy cards is over there on the table.
I'm Jim Marsh. I'm a retired Forest Service and Department of Defense 40-year employee. And I moved down here from Kyla in Montana up on Flathead last year. My wife and I, we live up at 999 Bear Creek Trail. We just finished up with Byron the Firewise program on our property up there with the DNRC. And I'm also a member on the Valley County Collaborative.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Rick Boyce with Victor Fire. Jim's neighbor, as a matter of fact, and I did the hazardous reduction of my property 6 years ago, and what a difference it makes.
Holden Davis with the Valley County Red Front Home.
Bill Seiler, I represent Pheasants Forever and trying to work with everybody in the room.
Jeff Robert for Valley County Office of Emergency.
Al Babel, Rachel Farm and Ranch, and a farming to Dallas.
I'm Frank Pelfrey, I'm both a private landowner and with the Bitterroot Climate Action Group.
Laura Jackson, time resident, private landowner. Running, how many generations do we got? great grandparents lived in the valley, but I did not grow up here. She teaches me on that. And I'm also on the transaction, board.
Eric Jocks, Hamilton Unit Manager, Montana DNRC.
How about over here on this side?
Well, my name's Eric Sutherland, property owner in Hamilton, Montana. I'm working on effort to modernize forest fire, forest fuel reduction efforts.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Jacob Cummings. I'm the Valley County Planner 2 here. I'm not here on behalf of the county. I'm here as a private citizen. I've been actively involved in fire mitigation, local mitigation strategies, and Office of Emergency Management down in Orange County, Florida. I basically, I did an array of different types of developments, everything from master plan communities to planning developments to subdivisions here. And I want to be able to bring my expertise to this local organization. I definitely see some cohesiveness at different levels of regulatory control, and I want to be here for the morphology for that. So I'm here to help.
Thank you.
Corey Gary, Fire Management Specialist for Tri-Fire and Fuel, Stevensville Ranger District. I will be relocating to the Darby Cedar Ranger District. Say Steve around.
Oh.
I'm Renee Dahl, Victor Fire.
Matt Young, Deputy Fire Staff on Boot Camp.
Mike Yance, private landowner, also currently president of the Bitterroot Valley Board of Realtors. I sit on the collaborative as well as the planning board and try to get information out to the realtors in every meeting we have towards helping clients get into the fire wise and do the mitigation that needs to be done on the property.
So apparently, Mike, you don't sleep.
Right, Jacob?
All right, thank you. Well, it's nice to see some new faces. Because we have a lot to do and we need some help.
Dirk.
Oh, yes, Dirk, introduce yourself.
Oh, and Kimberly is there.
I'm Dirk Kruger. I'm a logging contractor from Corvallis.
Welcome.
And Kimberly?
I think she's muted.
She is.
Kimberly, are you going to unmute?
Oh, she muted.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. No problem. Was trying to get to the right Zoom link because I was searching and searching, and then I was in a meeting by myself. So I was like, that can't be the right one. So good evening, everybody. Sorry to join you remotely. Had some things that came up, but looking forward to visiting tonight, Montana State University Extension, and your co-facilitator when needed. So glad to be here.
Thank you. We'll see how the co-facilitating works from Zoom.
Yes, a little more difficult.
Right. Okay, well, let's move along to the financial report, Kristen.
Actually, can we do this really quick?
Oh,
Keep it
sure,
quick?
sure.
Okay, so hang on, let me do this.
We have a fun little graphic.
Yeah, so this was something that came up in a training I had a week ago, and actually Judy had brought it up in a discussion that we had a few months ago, actually, I think it was. And I thought it would be really good just to remind you if you've seen this before, or show it to you if you've never seen it before. But it's a research established stages of groups, right? Many groups have been studied, and they found that groups typically go through a set of stages as they're working together to achieve a common goal. And the first stage is forming. And that's when true concerns are often suppressed while participants get to know each other. So that's the honeymoon period, right? It's like in a relationship, when you're like, okay, I'm gonna, be really on my best behavior and not show them the not so great qualities of myself. And so that, as you keep meeting, moves into the storming phase. Politeness barriers drop, and participants often try to enforce their issues or their positions onto the group, right? You're starting to become more comfortable in the group, and then you're asserting yourself. That stage moves into the norming stage, when participants begin to understand and trust each other. Then that moves into the performing stage, where the group gels and really begins to work together towards that common goal much more efficiently. And then it moves into transforming, or as some people call it, adjourning. The group has a new common understanding and trust. They begin to look at problems in new ways, and they develop solutions not possible in any other setting. This is why we do all of this, right? Because this group that we have here is going to come to solutions that we would never come to in our own little group, in my own little agency group, or your own little resident group or realtor group, right? That's why we're all here. But I wanted to bring this up because we've been in this storming stage. We've had some of this. And I just wanted to point it out that it's actually really good. It means we're progressing.
It's normal.
It's totally normal. So yay for us that we're going through that. And yay for us, let's keep moving through it as fast as we can so we get to this stage. Because as you look at effectiveness, that storming stage is the least effective part. So also, if you're frustrated, even though I think we're actually achieving a lot, we've got a CWPP that's almost going to be signed. And we were the light underneath that. And so that's something to be super proud of. But we are here. And so to get more effective, we need to move past this and get on. So we're normal, we're where we're progressing, but
Don't be discouraged.
yeah, don't be discouraged. We'll keep moving and get into this norming and helping each other apart.
And I had heard about this theory many years ago, and I forgot all about it when this group formed. And I was looking at it again a while back and realizing when we were forming, I was assuming we were all on the same page. We all thought the same thing. But it takes time to figure out we're different people. We have different experiences. We have different opinions, different political views. And so it's natural that we, of course, would eventually, the honeymoon would be over and we'd be getting real with each other.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. And I'm not disappointed. I think all groups naturally go through that. Kimberly, you've dealt with a lot of different kinds of groups. Have you seen this kind of activity before?
Yes, and I put into the chat that with most groups, this is the normal, and and don't be afraid, because you may go through the entire grouping and then find yourself back at storming. That's normal. That's just the way that certain groups work together. Nonprofits do the same thing. 4-H groups do the same thing. It is definitely one of those descriptions of what groups do, and sometimes you get stuck in certain stages for a longer period of time than you thought or anticipated, but that's okay too, because each group is different and there is not a set amount of time or a set period that you need to stay in each of those groups. It's just or each of those stages actually. And so for some groups, they go right from forming to storming and then norming, and they kind of hang tight in norming. For other groups, as you figure out each other's personalities and where you want to go, especially we've talked about mission, previously, especially with our CWPP conversation last time, that storming piece, even though it sounds negative, it's really not. It's really a good formative stage that allows the group to kind of figure out where everybody is at. So don't be afraid of that either.
Yeah,
Right, thank you.
Well, there's always new issues or topics that come up throughout any process you go through. And we'll have some later on as we progress. But, so yeah, I can see us going back to storming, when a new issue comes up.
right.
And then you work your way through it. just like
Yeah.
We have.
Just like a marriage, life happens.
Some are a little stormier than others.
Right.
Category 5.
All right, anything more on this, everybody? Thank you for humoring me.
Thanks for
No, I think it was,
thanks for enlightening us.
Yeah.
And reminding us.
yes,
That's it. I think a lot of us have probably seen it before, but just to remember. Okay, it's me again, financial report. We are still at the same $673.78. A reminder, this is the money that was allocated to us from a grant that funded and has been funding the FAC or Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator position. And I do still have some other DNRC funds, which I will be contributing to help out on certain items, but this is the amount that the council has direct control over within the outlines of the grant. We're gonna be talking about this in the vote request that I'm gonna ask in a little bit, so just remember that amount and where it comes from. Any questions? Okay.
Ken, are you ready to do a CWPP update?
Oh, sure. So I thought I'd start off with this. The last time I reminded the storming group that where we started and how we got to the storm. And I thought I'd start off with that this time. Because we're almost exactly 2 years away from when we officially kicked this thing off. And Byron and I and many of you attended the county commissioner meeting and 23 months ago and some change. And the next slide is the bottom line up front.
I'm sorry, I was waiting to hear back from them if they can see. Dirk or Kimberly, can you see the rooted in fire and adapted to fire slide? Is that what you're watching? Hello?
Yep, I can see it.
Just wanted to make sure.
So we gave the county commissioners the bottom line up front. And we basically told them the 2006 plan is so far out of date that it has no use at all. And the 2009 one didn't get signed, so that really didn't come into play. And we basically told them that the Fire and Root Council intends to update the plan, and we've got support from nearly all the entities that signed it. The 2006 and the 2009 one. And they really needed to step up. There's grant funding potentially available but it requires local support, including the county commissioners who were the ones who didn't sign it in 2009, which is why it didn't take effect. And the county really needed to be in place on this new one, because there's grant funding for all kinds of things that the county needs and Bitterroot RC&D needs and DNRC and the Forest Service. And so if we were really going to accomplish anything in terms of community wildfire protection, we got to have a good plan and it's got to be signed. And so then we gave them background on the council. and what a community wildfire protection plan is, characteristics, benefits, requirements. And we said, okay, we need a letter of support. And not only did we get a letter of support for them, they agreed to take the lead on the grant request, which we then put in to get the funding for the consultant that we worked with to get the plan in place. So that's the background. So now, let me fast forward on the plan. We got a core team together. We worked on that. And in May of last year, we had 3 public scoping learning sessions. One here, one in Hamilton, and one in Darby. And I'm gonna skip all of the stuff about the community wildfire protection plan, except the WUI, because that's the, on one hand, it's not really the center of it, but it has the appearance of being the center of it. Maybe it's the tail that wags the dog, but whatever it is, it's gotten most of the conversation. So now, here we are in May on the left, and I apologize for the graphic in the middle. I just couldn't get it to copy any lighter than that out of the draft plan. So you'll have to squint a little bit. But in May, when we went our 3 public meetings, we had 2 parts to our WUI. We had the traditional HEFRA part, which is, do we have a laser pointer?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Laser
I'm
pointers
really
have
bad
turned
today.
into cat toys, I think, and not,
Watch out.
but this lighter green was the
Yeah, don't. touch
high
the board.
vegetation fuel hazard buoy, which originally Myron, I think, called it the WUI protection or WUI hazard zone. But it turned into a hazardous fuel component of the WUI by May. So all this lighter green, and then this stuff in the middle is basically the traditional WUI definition from the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. We shopped that around in these 3 public meetings. There was a number of people who were very in favor of having that second component so that we could treat wildland fuels outside of the WUI and provide more protection for the WUI. And there were a number of people who thought that that was a very bad idea to have that as part of the WUI and include that as though it was a part of the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. So between May and November, we got a decision from a court decision in Red Lodge about community wildfire protection plan that had broadly defined the WUI and not very explicitly and broadly defined the WUI. And Forest Service had a couple of projects that were appealed and subsequently litigated. And the decision was, well, you weren't specific enough. You didn't approach it in a way that really made sense. And the part of the project that was right outside of Red Lodge was still okay, because Red Lodge was clearly a community that was identified by the criteria in the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. But there were lots of other parts, this kind of thing out in here that would not have been supported by that court decision. So we said, okay, well, let's take that out. And we'll move forward with our draft plan in November. And I know this is really hard to see, but it's essentially what's here in this lighter blue color and not the bright green. With the exception of, we took this part out and we took some other pieces out. But mostly it's the same as this lighter blue. And those of you who can see it, can see that darker outline. And it's the traditional WUI as defined by the Healthy Forest Restoration Act criteria. And so I don't know who said this, but it was kind of a Goldilocks WUI thing. This was too much, this is too little, but this one's just right. And so we got to, so then in November, well, in January, actually, the commissioners got a data set from the Forest Service that was a community protection layer that was a model data surface that was essentially done with land fire data and wildfire spread data from FlamMap and a variety of weather conditions across 500, similar, 1,500.
50,000.
50,000.
50, yeah.
Okay, 50,000 simulations. And it was a raster based deal, so pixel by pixel. And it said basically, if there's a fire in, let me pick on this a little bit. If there's a fire here and it escapes initial attack or is not contained by initial attack, what are the probabilities that it will reach structures and infrastructure? And so with that, there's 50,000 simulations of various weather conditions and rates of spread and so on. You get a probability surface of 0 to 100 of how often a fire in a given location will reach structures. And so the core team and the commissioners basically went with the idea that the 51st percentile to the 100th percentile was a rational place to break that off and say, it's more likely than not that a fire outside of our traditional WUI here would escape containment with initial attack and spread to structures. That's a reasonable addition to the HEPRA defined WUI that'll address some of the hazardous fuels that are immediately adjacent to the WUI that we had in our draft in November. So you can't really see it, but there's small amounts and various amounts are added, mostly on the west side. There's a little bit on the east side, but it mostly changed the boundary on the west side and in the West Fork. Where there were a fire occurrence, there would be more likely than not to reach structures and infrastructure if it was not contained with initial attack. So we added the 51st through 100th percentile to this WUI to get this WUI. And that's the one that's in the current version. What's the deadline on comments?
This Friday.
This
Check it.
Friday, you can check it out, make comments through Friday. The public meeting will be the 20th. And we have a deadline for signatures based on our grant deadline of the 20.
The grant deadline is the 29th, but they wanna sign
They
it before
really
that.
want to sign it and be ready. We do have a hard deadline because of our grant funding. And we made an amended agreement with the consultants to do a little bit of this rewriting and support.
Ken, could you explain the blue stripe on the map?
The blue stripe is essentially the at-risk communities as defined by HEFRA, which is why the Red Lodge decision said, well, Red Lodge is an at-risk community, so that's defined by HEFRA, and the Forest Service project is adjacent to it, so that part of it stayed in when the court looked at it. So in our case, the at-risk communities are Sula, Connor, Darby, Grantsdale, Hamilton, Corvallis, Pinesdale, Victor, Stevensville, and Florence. And so in addition to the at-risk community, obviously, we have our infrastructure core. We got Highway 93, we got it. I mean, it's a kind of a package deal, you know, if you have houses, you have power lines and communication lines and highways and secondary roads, and so.
And we did add, West Fork. And it's
We
not
did.
on the Federal Register, but we added West Fork and Painted Rocks as at-risk communities, both of those, didn't we?
We
I think
did, we did,
So.
because before they were kind of represented by the fire districts
Mhm.
rather than as communities per se. So they got added between the draft, the November and the January. And then, like I said, some of these pieces like this that were not truly access and egress corridors went out. And we added some things about revisions. You know, what prompted a revision, changes in the basic data that went into the CWPP and so on. But the bulk of the change was not those minor edits to the text. It was this at-risk or community risk data layer from the Forest Service that came to the commissioner's attention in January.
And you can see the CWPP on the story map. They have this final version on there, and you can get to that through the Ravalli County website. Just Google Ravalli County CWPP and you'll get there. And then just, if you have comments, email the commissioners. Laura has the email address probably already memorized, so just ask Laura.
So the community risk layer is on there as well.
Yeah.
And we added a fire district map, which somehow slipped between the cracks the first time. Not that that's a huge change to the document, but so that's the short version. Yeah.
And, the commissioners kind of wanted a half mile expansion east and west. It's a lot more than a half mile.
In
In
places,
some
In places, it's a
but
half
not in
mile,
others.
But the
Yeah.
West Fork is significantly larger.
It is.
Now, were the commissioners okay with all of this?
Yep. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
I wasn't able to make the meetings.
yeah, well, right. And so yeah, it did add quite a bit in the West Fork. And well, and not surprising. I mean, if you think about it from a fuel hazard, I mean, we didn't keep this WUI fuel hazard WUI in, but that's the biggest block of the hazardous fuels from when we were approaching it with that conceptual model. So yes, it did add quite a bit. And by having those as at-risk communities, that,
I remember at our subcommittee hearing, I said that a half mile wasn't gonna cut it, remember?
Yeah.
And I think it was Commissioner Burrows that kind of alluded to a half mile. But that wasn't gonna be enough in most places.
right, And, and it's arbitrary, you
Yeah,
know? So you say, well, so why a half mile? Well, this other, you know, the model data surface tells us, given the current fuels, vegetation, and, our best scientific data on rates of spread and fire modeling. More often than not, a fire in that location will reach structures and infrastructure. So more often than not became a more rational approach than a half a mile everywhere.
So what you're saying is the Forest Service's science data really helped the commissioners out on this one? I mean, to see it
Yeah, it,
being bigger, I mean,
Well-
that sounds great that they.
Yeah, it provided a scientific rationale, which it gives us more standing, right? And, yeah.
Glad they listened.
yeah, and so it was one of those deals where this probably wasn't gonna really work, you know? And this really wasn't enough to provide the kind of additional support for fuel management projects and other things that need to be done as part of the implementation of the CWPP. So this is kind of, this is the alternative. And that's what's in the current draft. Comments are due by Friday. So that's where we are.
We're at the just right model.
Apparently, I don't know who said that, but
Yeah,
that was a good one. This is the Goldilocks Louis model. Too much, too little, just right. At least just right by some standards. I'm sure there are many people who think that this is just right, and there's other people who think that this is way too much. But that's the nature of the beast.
All right, are we ready to move on?
Is that it? Your presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thanks.
Thank you, Ken.
And I've, just for background information, if anybody wants to see what we told the commissioners 2 years ago, there's a little handout from that meeting. I had some left and I put them on the corner of the front table. So if you want to see what we said way back when, to see if we did what we said, more or less, there's the handouts.
So process wise, this Friday is the close of the comments. So when,
Oh, it's the 16th. I'm sorry.
16th.
It is the 16th. I apologize. I was on me.
what's the
Ooh,
following?
Laura just had a heart attack.
Yeah, sorry.
So what's the?
Saturday, to keep track of data.
I know,
Uh,
but what's the process after that?
Then the commissioners will have their meeting on the 20th.
Yes, 20th at
And
10:30, I think.
they'll make their decision then.
Okay,
Between the 20th and the 16th, I think we will look at the comments and make any.
Right. If there's any little tweaks, and there could be, you know. So. But the 20th, and that's getting close to our grant deadline when we need a decision to close this thing out.
and
thank you.
did the commissioners, was your sense that they were nodding their head up and down as bobbleheads, or were they engaged more than 09? Because in 09 they weren't engaged.
Oh, they're way more engaged. They are fully engaged. And so,
They were ready to vote on it in January prior to the 11th hour.
Right,
of this fire.
right.
So they're the one who pumped the brakes, instead was the pilot based on, which is like a place to be.
Yeah, and so we got that, went to the core team, we said, okay, you know, and they kind of like that 50th, 60th percentile, you know. You know, again, that was one of those, if it was 40 enough, is 60 too much, you know, or I mean, a 60 not enough and 60 too much. And, you know, more often than not is a very rational state. So that's 51 to 100%.
So is it 51 to 100% that they're gonna sign?
I'd say it's closer to 100, but we can make a side bet, we can make a side bet on that.
Yeah, we sure could.
And I would expect you to be the pessimist side of that side bet, since you were.
Fire and
Or
steel.
in 2009.
This is a good thing, this time.
Yep.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
No, I really think we're on final approach here.
That's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
wood.
Knock on composite.
Knock on wood.
That one. Any other questions?
Just a comment, I'm glad that you pretty much, Jeff said, in that meeting, it sounds like commissioners are pretty much totally on board with it.
Yeah. And then I've been communicating with Kelsey with respect to the technical committee. And got him the background literature, and we had a couple of rounds of email. So I think the collaborative is doing a letter.
Yep.
On the current draft. And I know they did on the previous draft. So.
Okay. Kristen, you want to tell us about the outreach team report?
You bet. We've got a lot going on. This past weekend, we did the Bitterroot Building Industry Association's Home and Ranch Expo. It's a Friday, Saturday sort of thing, and I covered Friday, and Roylene and Judy took the bulk of the work on Saturday, and we had over 150 contacts. Those are people that we actually interacted with and exchanged information with. So that's awesome. In comparison, 2 years ago, when Bridget and I did it, and you helped us with that too. And Judy, we had about 45 people for both days. So great increase. I mean, COVID, I'm sure, reared its ugly head and was a part of that, but a lot of people. So that was great exposure. Reduced smoke debris burning workshop. Judy has been working very hard on putting this together. We have Dr. Peter Kolb, who is with the MSU Extension, a guru in pile burning and debris burning, and he's going to be providing a 2-hour how-to workshop and then do some burning later in the day. We're going to run it from 10 to 3. We're going to provide a free lunch, and then Anna Marie Scott, who is a member of the council. She just hasn't been able to attend our meetings for a while, but she's with Team Rubicon, and she will be providing a chainsaw safety demonstration. And then Eric Hoover is going to be doing a presentation on burn permits, air quality, and safe burning from a county standpoint. So lots of really cool things. And then we're going to have 3 different piles for Dr. Kolb to burn. One will be a nicely well-constructed pile according to his standards, a poorly constructed pile, and then a juniper pile, so that we can.
That'll
we
be the
can
fun part.
Yeah.
So we can promote bunch of juniper.
Yeah, so we can show people, get rid of your junipers.
And then, there's a flyer over on the table.
Yeah.
there.
So flyers are back there. We have, it is a totally free event. Lunch is free. We are asking people to RSVP just to reserve their lunch. But they.
So that we have enough food.
Yeah, we want to have enough food, but like, seriously, people can come even if it's that day. If somebody's like, oh, but I didn't RSVP, tell them to come. we'll have food, we'll feed them. So that's going on. We are devising our advertising kind of campaign right now. We're also actually looking into the potential of maybe doing a video, maybe a professional video of this so that we can use it as an educational tool, put it on our website and have it, because I know my counterparts throughout the state would love this sort of outreach to have. And so we're checking on a few things, but money is also going to be a big part of that, because that does not come cheap. Advertising doesn't come cheap either. So that is our April 6th workshop. Judy is also working on a landscaping workshop with KNS Nursery, where I will just provide a basic HIZ presentation to landscapers and we'll discuss the strategy of Firewise landscaping. I did bring our brand new Firewise landscaping in the Bitterroot brochure. Take some, take a bunch. I have plenty, so if you have places to put it and you need more, let me know, let Judy know, we'll get you some more. But yeah, so we're gonna focus, that brochure is gonna be a big part of it, but the focus is really going to be on landscapers and hopefully ignite some interest in them to carry this forward. Yeah,
Get funds for the realtor board.
yeah, you can take all that's left, and I may have more in my car to grab you.
I think I have more in my car too.
Oh, good, okay, yeah, because you took a whole box.
I have a box.
All right, brown bag field tour and lunch. Ken is working on putting this together, organizing this, probably in May or June at Larry Creek. The idea is to have an actual field tour. This is an area that had field treatment done about 10 years ago, and they've done routine prescribed burning every 2 years or so. And so having inviting a number of Bitterroot National Forest professionals, also fire scientists from the lab, and other entities to discuss what's going on.
Bitterroot RCD.
And Bitterroot RCND, and hopefully trying to get a private property nearby that we can visit, so we can build in that, hey, this is what's going on in public lands, this is what could be happening in your backyard, you know, and tying in that homeowner and property owner mitigation aspect. So that is in the works right now. And we're also looking at doing a 2025 workshop, conference, learning series. Who knows what we're actually going to call it, but right now we're looking at doing a 1-day sort of conference, essentially, where we gather a number of fire scientists, individuals that that can speak to all different arrays of mitigation. And we initially have talked about a seminar series that would go through the winter, and then started to center on the idea of consolidating it all into 1 day and just smushing in a whole bunch of sessions for individuals. So that is something that's in the works for a little ways out, and hopefully when we have some funding.
Yeah, because that is somewhat dependent on funding, if we're gonna get a location, get them to come and have food available, you know, coffee and food. We're gonna have to have some funds for that, so.
Yeah.
So we're a year out on that.
And then I will be sometime this spring doing a HIZ training for the Bitterroot Valley Board of Realtors, thanks to Mike.
We'll also try to get it opened up public.
Sweet, okay, yeah, more the merrier. So we have the DNRC has developed a continuing education course for realtors, and we've done some before, but not this standardized program. And so the Mike's group will probably be the first ones to get it, because it's like hot off the press.
Okay, it's something I asked Kristen about last year.
Yeah, yeah, and we've done it, I've done it previously up in Missoula. For the past 2 years, but this is, the DNRC, is trying to implement it throughout the state, and so we developed a standardized, program, so. So thank you, Mike, looking forward to that one, and that will be, hopefully in March. And then our next meeting will be February 28th at 1 PM. And as always, anybody is invited. It's always at the Bitterroot National Forest Supervisor's Office. So any questions on that or comments or ideas?
And for all of you new folks, you're welcome to come and consider being on the outreach team. You can come and see what we do and decide if it's too rowdy for you or not.
But we always,
Alternate between storming and norming and 15 minutes.
without the CWPP, hopefully it'll be less storming, but
Maybe.
yeah. But we always have more ideas than we have people
Right.
to implement them, right? And so seriously, we can use more members, definitely.
And just
Well,
because you
well, this-
show up doesn't mean you're committed.
Yes,
You can say, I'm just here to observe this time.
yep.
Give me a break.
And while this is not anything officially dealing with Fire and Root Council or the outreach team, it's coming up before our next meeting, so I'll mention it. I had an opportunity to find out about the learning session that's being sponsored by the Salmon Chalice National Forest on the 23rd, talking about a lot of different topics, but including the importance of fire risk mapping and the relationship of that to some of the topics that we deal with. And so I'm not sure who all, but some of us may go over to that session. It's 4:30 to 6:30 in Salmon at the Idaho Fish and Game Regional, or not regional, I guess it is a regional office. Anyway, it's the one, just as you're coming into Salmon, it's on the left. And I think the Forest Service used to be there years and years ago. But anyway, and Kristen contacted the folks to see if there was a Zoom opportunity. And if there is, we might be able to.
There isn't.
There is not.
Well, I thought I read that, but then I reread it and I didn't see it and I thought, well, I must have been imagining. it.
Yeah, I think I just forwarded it, yeah.
So never mind that.
But it's
Never
an
mind,
option
there's
for
no
what
Zoom
we can
option. You
model.
have to go in person.
Yeah.
So who knows, maybe we can see who's interested, do some kind of carpooling.
What the date again?
23rd, Friday, the 23rd of February, 4:30
Was it a
to
Friday?
6. Yeah,
How interesting that they
I
said
think I
it
got
on
the
a
date
Friday.
right. Now, it's possible. And more probable all the time, for me to read something and then put it into my calendar wrong, but I think,
Oh, probably.
did you?
I'm pulling up right now.
Oh, yeah, okay, I forwarded the. So, yeah, 4:30, I'm sure of the time, 4:30 to 6:30,
Mhm.
and I'm sure of the location. I'm just not sure of the date.
And what exactly is the topic again, or the, among other topics, topic?
Here, let me,
February 22nd,
Thursday.
so Thursday. This one is risk mapping. And so they're gonna have a series, kind of like we were thinking of with our seminar series. They just called it learning sessions. And they're gonna cover different data analysis tools, but also probably get into some of what we've done with the CWPP. And so we just wanted to see how they do it, because it's a public forum essentially, and so maybe it's something we model in 2025, and instead of doing our 1-day thing, we do this, or. I don't know, so it's just. We'll see how they do it.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, we'll see how well that approach works and see if there's something we can, let's call it borrow
Steal.
from them. So. So see, I am perfectly capable of having all of the things right except the date.
Well, you got it in the end. That's what matters.
Yeah, so thank you for saving me here.
Okay, let's move on to the next item here. Kristen likes to talk about money, so we're gonna let her talk again.
I do. This is the vote request. I wanted to, as lead of the outreach team, I want to formally request that the council vote to allow the outreach team to essentially have the last remaining $673.75 or 28 cents, whatever it is, for use in our outreach support. So most of it would probably be spent on advertising for our April 6th workshop. That is the most immediate need. So I can't really think of anything else that the council can spend funds on right now, other than outreach items. And so that's why I'm just putting it to you, if you were just asking you to let us have those funds to spend on support of our projects. But if anybody has other ideas, like now would be a great time to voice it too, because maybe I haven't thought of anything.
And maybe before we vote, we have to talk about eligibility for voting.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of an issue that has come up we were not anticipating.
So last year, when we were talking about membership and voting, and we decided we had special rules for 2023 because that was the year that we actually made the changes and made the decisions. Now it is 2024, and so the rule is that voting members need to have 20 hours of participation in order to vote. 20 hours of participation in the preceding year, which is 2023, in order to vote. Going through our numbers.
And for the sake of new people, the ones who cannot vote are agency folks, except for our
Yeah.
C and D.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, so agency individuals do not vote. So this is really anybody who's non-agency that is able to vote. And then we try our best to track all participation hours and include ones that are reported. And so based on that tracking, which I have here too, so if you want to check.
Yeah, I wanna know how many hours I've done.
Yeah, it was really, it was really
Two.
hard
2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah,
because it was.
because if I don't, you can all leave the building right now.
Well, see, and that's what I want to, that's what we need to clarify, because we said in the meeting, it would be participation in the meetings and on a team. So that doesn't count
Service hour.
other hours. Yes, Mike represents us many times while he's wearing his 5 other hats, right? Raylene, you were here all the time, right? And so,
Plus John and I had your bloody trailer out. Every weekend we had pancake breakfast.
Right.
Guys.
right, so
And
what
Albert's
we,
here all the time and participating with his positive input, so.
yeah, so it's like, looking at this, there is no way that Green should be who is voting, right? It should be a lot more, like both Judy and I were like, it should be more.
I've got. Are you saying that only those
5 people right now eligible to vote?
Yes,
The
from
ones in the green.
2023 hours.
Oh,
So remember,
I can take that.
no, okay, so remember, this is what's reported, right? We need to figure out a way to track these numbers because there is no way Eurista knew what everybody was doing and could just, I actually added a bunch of numbers in here because I knew individuals were doing like CWPP. I knew Ken had been to every CWPP meeting that I was at.
But I did.
Yeah, you're in there.
Yeah.
You're in there.
I'm not like you agree.
No, but because you didn't have 20 hours.
So what we're saying
So,
is,
yeah.
when we decided as a group last year that 20 hours seemed like the right number. In actuality, what we're
Seems like
seeing
it's
after
too high.
looking at a year's worth of numbers is that bar was too high.
Or not enough things counted against that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
The bar might be right, but it
but,
needs to include fair participation in
but see,
CWPP.
it did in some of those. So I
Okay.
would caution you, like for outreach, I did pretty good. And even if you didn't report your hours to me, because actually nobody reported their hours to either Eurista or myself. We put in here when we knew you guys volunteered. So like Frank, you've got 14.5. You're really close. But think about it. If you don't attend every single one of these meetings, it's gonna be really hard, especially if you're not on a team. It's gonna be impossible for you to hit 20.
So
You
what,
have to almost be on a team and active on a team in order to get.
yeah, so what we're saying is, Kristen and I looked at this and said, we think we need to revisit this. The
Yeah.
20 hours is too many. It seems unreasonable. We want to lower that number because we want more participation. Mike's got his hand raised.
I know with, well, just through the realtor board, not only with our board of directors meeting, the government affairs, and a couple other committee meetings that I'm on, and promoting the fire council, fire and roof council in every one of those meetings, and that's 3 to 4 a month,
Right,
and plus the collaborative.
right.
Yeah.
But see, if we're gonna do that, which like, listen to Judy and I, we're agreeing. Like, we feel, well, and
You just need
This-
to know.
huh?
You just need to know.
Yes, we don't have a way of tracking this. We can't just magically know what hours you're doing, but that also still might not be enough because like some of these I feel are pretty accurate. It feels like we're here a lot, but 20 hours is a lot. Like it really is. And so I think we have two things that we're proposing. One is, do we want to lower the hours required to a more attainable one? And two, we need to develop a tracking method so that you are getting the credit that you deserve for representing, for taking our trailer, whatever, right? It's not on us, like, we're not the bad people here. This is a decision we all made, recognize that. So we're just saying, we agree. We want you to be
Reality has
represented.
hit and we see that what we decided last year as a whole council isn't really working that well.
Right,
20 seemed like a reasonable number at the time
It
in our
did.
discussion, but apparently not.
No,
And,
Kendall.
Well, 12 meetings is only 18 hours.
and we don't even meet every month.
No,
Well,
Yeah.
I would propose 51% to 100% of the meetings, if you come to that, because that's just the right number.
More often than not.
More often than not, if you show up to a meeting here, you should
Yeah.
have a voice.
Yeah,
Because if you've given half your time in a year to come here at night, I think that's, we've already said that it works.
yeah, we,
I think it should work for this council.
we,
That's
Yeah.
we
what I
could
would-
totally do that,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that would be 9.
Yeah, and background
So-
context
I think
on
you can get stuff doing other stuff.
the 20 hours was we wanted to promote activity on our teams. Right? Because we do a lot of discussion in here, but a lot of the action happens in the teams. And things can't happen if we don't have people on those teams. And so we wanted to have that requirement be more than you could get by just being at these meetings, so that there would be people on teams. But we also don't have a lot of teams. Now, that might change too, given some of the other items tonight, but, you know, I think it is probably a little too high given what we've got, and maybe we just go back to a number of meetings. If you've been to more than 6, if you've been to 7 meetings, that's more than 50% of our general meetings. You've got the right to vote, and we could institute that in 2023. You know, whoever came to at least 7 meetings in 2023 has the right to vote in 2024, and then same moving forward. So we could do that too.
That seems,
Say 7 general meetings and 1 team. That might
Yeah.
nudge people in the team.
well, the only problem with requiring a team meeting is some people have to work and can't do it.
That's
Even if-
where I've run into, and
Yeah.
it's one on the 28th, I just checked my calendar, and I've got a training session I have to attend, it's required training.
Right.
But that's a good idea, but
So we have 11 meetings a year, right? So we
If
don't have
there's
one.
nothing
You're right,
happens
yes.
in the
So-
first
Yeah.
season,
So actually, if we
looking
did
at
6.
10.
we did 6, because we do usually cancel the January meeting.
Yeah,
And we also canceled one in the summer,
Yeah.
this last year.
Yeah,
Well,
that's not a routine, but it probably
Right.
will happen, it could happen.
Your voice is being heard in the vote. Probably more likely
So that would
to
give you.
participate.
right.
If you showed up 11 times and the vote, is more likely, let's be honest. No.
Right.
Right,
And then,
but we don't vote on very many.
No, you don't wanna have
Yeah.
it, but right now, I wanna say spend that money, but I
Right.
don't get votes, you've
Right.
not been here the last
Yeah,
5 meetings.
yeah,
But I wanna say spend it,
yeah.
like,
Well, there are individuals that have been here since the beginning,
in-
right?
In 23, we didn't have a booth at the builder show, in 23.
Mhm.
So I promoted the
See,
material
yeah.
out of the
Yeah,
Bitter Board Realtors booth.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
So,
I didn't count that, but you're right, we could, yeah. But see, that goes to the tracking thing then too, right? It's not like that is, we have
Two
to have,
parts to it.
yeah, we have to have a tracking method so that individuals are tracking their own hours. It's absolutely unrealistic.
and the other reason
Us to know what you're doing.
we have to start tracking is because when we are at a point where we can file grant applications, we need to be able to say, you know, there are people that are doing in-kind work.
Yeah,
It counts towards getting grant money.
Our non-agency people
yeah,
doing in-kind work.
Right.
yeah, it is valuable.
So we will need to do a better tracking system. We don't have one tonight to present to you. We just know that's where we have to go. But what we wanted to recognize tonight is those green numbers have not turned out to be reasonable. We
Right.
see that now. And I think you see that.
Yeah,
So what we need to decide is,
you know what we could do? Let's maybe discuss some options that I can bring back in March for, like, maybe we just say, okay, what would it look like for 6 meetings or more? Just who attended 6 meetings or more? And maybe another option or 2, maybe 6 meetings and a team meeting.
Well, how about
And-
6 meetings and some service hours?
Okay,
Teams would count, manning booths would count,
okay,
you know, representing
yeah.
the council and collaborative would count, that kind of stuff.
And then I can bring back in March a new spreadsheet with new green lines. If you have hours that you don't think I calculated, you let me know, like Mike's BBIA, that's very valid.
Site assessment hours too,
Huh?
site assessment hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I
Yeah.
added yours in.
Oh, did you?
You didn't remind me.
So,
Or is
yeah,
that
cause,
glass?
if I didn't go with you, if it was Eurista, I wouldn't even have known. So you're right. So let me know, and you can come up and look and see your hours too, so that you know. And I have like the meetings for outreach, at least I have the meetings and the events all broken out.
But maybe for purposes of just this $600 and something, maybe we could get a show of hands to see if anybody thinks the
No.
outreach team should not
Yeah.
get
that's a good
that
idea.
money. And then we can get that out of the way.
Okay, I was gonna wait till March, but you're right. If nobody really has heartburn
We
about
might
it,
need the money.
it'd be okay.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for the outreach.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all going to Jamaica, right?
Don't get very far for $600.
Okay, so given our conundrum about who's eligible to vote, why don't we just have a show of hands and maybe somebody, we'll listen if somebody thinks it's not a good idea for the outreach team to have the money.
You've got all but one of the green people up there present right now. Rick's the only one who
Yeah.
isn't, so we overruled him and everybody else voted in favor.
Anyways.
He's on the outreach team anyway, so.
He still might vote against.
Well, that's true.
That's
He has
right.
an opinion, but he doesn't agree with it. So,
So does
so we
anybody,
could, the green people there could take advice from the room and vote.
I think you have to do that. for parliamentary.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
And if we get.
Let's do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
So,
Are there any voices against it though? Any comments against it that could advise?
I see a lot of people shaking their heads no, but Albert has a
I have a
question.
question. Should we leave a little bit in the banking, in the checking account to keep it open?
It is open
Okay.
because it's a grant that I'm
okay.
administering for the council.
I mean, a little bit,
so,
like really a little bit,
Yeah,
you know, like $10 or something.
yeah,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
we probably will, but I actually I have a safety blanket
Buffer.
already saved out, so,
And
yeah.
I'm for it.
Okay. I think I'm hearing nobody has a problem with the outreach team.
Okay.
Having access to this money of 600 and whatever it was.
600 and some change.
He's the best derby.
Yeah, we can't leave town much. With $600.
Yeah, or Florence, the other.
You're gonna have to take a motion.
Yeah.
We don't
No,
do
we don't
Robert's
do-
rules in this group.
We don't,
We just
because
put
we're
it,
not that, we don't even have bylaws.
We don't have bylaws, we don't have a
We'll have to
board, we
get
don't
there.
use Robert's rules.
but we do need a vote on that.
Yes, we know, they're not ready yet, Jeff.
I move that the currently eligible voters vote on this and,
So, yeah, we can have a vote on
Okay,
it.
thumbs up or thumbs down. Got it, yay. Thank you
Okay,
for your
That's the
vote.
only green thumb I'll ever
thank
have.
you for your patience on that. At some point, we will probably have, oh, Byron, you have a question.
Well, go ahead and say what you're gonna say and I'll bring it.
At some point, we will have to be a more formal group, but at this point, we are not. We don't use Robert's rules. When we have to administer grant money, we'll probably have to change things.
Yeah,
Right.
but we were doing good just to get the membership voting rules down.
Yeah.
That was pretty.
Okay, Byron.
So just to give you an idea about reporting in kind,
Yeah,
so at the RC&D, we have 4 foresters. And basically, we look at all the in-kind and every one of those folks reports their in-kind to a central point. Every pay period. And then we record that. And then as we go along through a grant, they name basically 2 hours of this in-kind goes to this grant. and it may be too complicated for this group to do that sort of thing. But we do that to keep track of all in-kind hours and miles. In order to, at the end of the grant, you bundle all that up along with the in-kind of the landowners have put into their projects. And most of the time, we go way over the in-kind that
Was
is
required.
required by the grant. Okay, so just an idea, and you can mull it around, but is maybe have a person that's a collection point for any of us to report back to that person and say, we put 2 hours in at the Builders Association meeting or conference. Or I went out to a landowner and we talked for an hour about fire in the roof. And Jim Marsh came here because of something that I said, okay? And whether that's true or not, I don't know, but.
Good job, Byron.
Yeah, I
But at
foresee us
least-
having forms that we each have to fill out on a monthly
Something,
basis.
yeah,
Yeah,
something
Google
that
form.
you could. you
I think
could
a
sink your
Google
teeth
form
into,
too. This,
you know.
yeah.
Because in-kind is, like you said, is a very important item for when you receive a grant. You've gotta have that recorded some way.
Yeah,
And even the time it takes, for instance, if I have an initial meeting with a contractor and a landowner. Contractor doesn't even have the job yet. So all the miles and the time to drive those miles goes into the in-kind. Because they're coming out to that project and we're talking about it for about an hour and then they go home. So all of that counts as in-kind. Because
Right.
it's going towards that job.
right.
Well, thank you for helping us and telling us that you're gonna continue to help us when we develop our forms. Or at least you're volunteering Josh.
It's actually relatively easy. I work for a nonprofit, so like I'm all grants and funding, so I have an app. So I put it,
Yeah.
I mean, so
Right,
there's like, if it's ADP or whoever, there's all these different, like, so everybody can just have the app that was doing it and they could log and it would go to somebody.
Sweet.
Create
Yeah.
the report and it's so simple. So it's.
yeah, I've
doesn't
done
have
it
to
with
be
other
provided
groups.
like
We'll
reading
be
your
able to
ticket scratch,
figure it out.
Right.
But it's also based off what the grants are gonna require.
Yeah,
That's
we
what-
actually use a
Yeah.
pencil and an eraser.
I know you do.
Well, we need to move on because we only have 10 minutes and we aren't through our agenda yet.
But that is good. So, okay.
I have a question. Should we not set up a requirement for the hours, like seven meetings, would be 10.5 hours plus 2 hours of,
Goodness.
extracurricular? I think we should come up with a number before we move on.
15 hours, let's try it, that would be a significant reduction.
Well, if we went to 7 meetings, that would be 10.5 hours plus at least 2 hours of extra work.
Well, I thought what we wanted to do is give people time to think about solutions like that. Email it to Kristen and I this month before we set up the agenda, and then it will be an item. We'll put 2 or 3 options on there and then we'll decide.
Okay.
Because we don't have time to sort it all out tonight. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay. Yes, I'm being a bully now.
You're being a facilitator.
Okay, Kristen, we do need to talk about a change in council organization recommendation.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this to the group, because it's pertinent to exactly what we've been talking about for the past half hour. If we want to do anything further, we need funds, right? When the CWPP is signed, we will have an avenue to access a lot of funds for many of the projects that we were instrumental in putting in that action table. But also there's a ton of grants out there that we could apply for right now. And so we tried to get a funding team or grant team put together shortly after we formed, and there just wasn't that capacity. But if we want to keep moving forward, it's something that needs to happen. So I'm putting it out there. Do we have individuals willing to be on a grant / funding team? And then we need somebody to lead that team in order to pursue. And we have multiple things to pursue. One is, how will we as a council receive funds? How are we gonna apply? Are we gonna go through an umbrella organization like Bitterroot RC&D? Do we want to pursue 501c3 now? What do we want to do? So we have those questions to answer and then actually pursue some grants. But we need a focused effort on it. So I'm suggesting to the council, we create that team, and I'm hoping somebody will step forward willing to lead that and others to be on that team.
We know there are at least 2, but probably more people in this room right now who have worked on grant applications. So if you're interested in joining that team, can we just get a show of hands?
Yeah, is there anyone that is interested in leading it?
So I would like to suggest that the leadership of that team, if we establish it right now, that we keep an open mind in having the coordinator lead that team, because there's going to be a lot of administrative details that would logically be part of a coordinator's role.
Yeah, so
So
the coordinator will for sure be on the team. I don't know about leading it right off the bat for sure.
Yeah,
But they will be
that would
leading the
be-
outreach team.
that would be
And,
unfair,
yeah,
but
and we don't know what we're hiring.
Right, if
Like-
we don't have somebody willing to take the spot that has that kind of experience, it
Yeah, we may have
wouldn't be
zero
helpful.
experience.
Mhm.
So, but in the future, yes, like,
or perhaps that person, their team role is to handle those
Yes.
administrative
yes,
details.
definitely.
But I would be willing to participate in that team. I don't feel like I can lead that.
Byron, did you
Yeah,
have a
I'll-
question?
No, I'll be a participant on the team
Yay,
and or Josh, both of us.
I'm not you're not getting out of that door.
she's hiding behind
Marlene would
Frank.
be bugging you anyway. so.
I see you behind Frank. Did you raise your hand, Marlene?
Yes,
Yay.
he's looking at.
Would anybody else like to be on that grant / funding team? And maybe at their first meeting, they could talk about leadership on this.
Yeah,
And it could be that it's a self-led.
Yeah,
So we may not need a formal leadership.
yeah, I mean, if you got it,
Well, we'll have somebody to speak for the team
Right,
at
right.
our meeting.
Right.
And I brought this up before, but the RC&D applies for a lot of grants. And as part of the grants that we apply for, it covers outreach and education. So part of the grants that we get at RC&D could contribute something
yeah,
in terms of funding.
yeah,
Not a great deal, but we can.
it's something, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And in the near term, we're probably gonna need to work with RC&D to be the fiscal agent, because we really can't, we won't have bylaws and we won't have a 501c3 in place as fast as we need money.
mhm,
And just to let you know, RC&D has helped probably over 100 wannabe nonprofits over the years. And we've been the umbrella for all those wannabe nonprofits. And when they finally got together and got designated, then they left us. And then another would come in. So that's what role the RC&D has been playing.
So they know how to write grants and.
Yeah.
They're experts.
They have a board of directors and bylaws. is what they
Well, there
do.
might be a chance that you guys can piggyback on stuff that Pheasants is doing as well.
Sure.
Because, I
Yeah.
mean, that's our whole goal is to work, so if it's funding, I mean, I can't say yes or no, but there's probably a way to write it in, like when we're going after money. So, I mean, I'm sure they would love, because it's all about collaboration. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do, so if it's, I mean, that's what we're doing, right? So if we can also help this, I mean, we would like to do it, I just don't know how to do it.
Well, and that's something that funding team can look at is how can we utilize Bitterroot RC&D's outreach funds? How can we become a partner in what you're doing and be that outreach arm?
Yeah, I mean, that's.
For
I'm
what
doing.
you're
So, yeah,
doing.
I mean, just, it makes sense. I mean, of course, you gotta go and just run it up the flagpole.
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I
yeah.
know that's what every meeting that I have is about
Yeah.
collaboration. as a group.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you want to join this
That's what I
team?
thought.
I think that's what I'm hearing.
Sure, I was gonna go to this other meeting, but, it's not gonna go to the other team meeting, but.
Oh, the outreach? You can go to 2 team meetings. They're not on the same days, I'm sure.
Okay, and the fact will be that Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator, should be a part of this team too, and would
Oh,
play a
absolutely.
big administrative role, and
Absolutely.
I'll fill in as I can until they're in place, so,
The faculty
Okay.
to be ex officio member of basically most
Yeah.
all the teams.
yes, yes. I just didn't want to build them into a leadership role,
I understand.
everything
I
right off the
understand.
bat,
Yeah, that's not
especially,
fair,
yeah.
but Still a good idea.
Well,
Yes.
The one that we hear.
It is.
Okay, and then,
Well,
A fire hose.
and remember, one of the really critical things we need funding for is that position. Because it is soft funded right now. I'm scraping together a number of different grants to fund this position. I have 18 months of funding for it. It's not guaranteed past that, right? And so our goal was to, through the CWPP, because it's an action item in the CWPP, was to secure funding through that CWPP. And in order to do that, we've got to have an organized body working towards that. So
Mhm.
okay, we have 2 minutes left for our last item.
luckily, it's like, is everybody okay with us transitioning the CWPP input team to more of a CWPP tracking team? So the CWPP team will remain, but it'll turn into really tracking our implementation of CWPP processes and reporting to the county yearly so that the implementation table is updated. It's like kind of a no-brainer, but I just want to make sure nobody is against that.
Right.
So, and that it
And that-
formally will happen.
Obviously, that's assuming that it gets signed
Yes,
and that we don't have another draft. But, yes. Let's do
That is our assumption and our prayer.
And it's highly likely in both counts.
And it's 8:30, we did it.
agenda items. So
Okay,
we have the membership
for next
Yeah.
time,
issue.
we're meeting on Tuesday, March 5th at 7. And we have a list of things. We're gonna talk about the voting options. So be thinking about that. If you come up with a suggestion for the number of hours that we should consider, email Kristen and I before we put the agenda together. So we have all the options on there.
And how to track.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Either of
we may
those
not,
issues.
I might be able to draft up some forms by then, but it may not be complete by then.
Well, and we don't need to recreate the wheel, so, what forms you guys have, the apps you have, send it
Great.
to us and stealing is the best form of compliment when you're talking about outreach or getting
Yeah.
work done in mitigation, so.
And we want to lots of grants right out of the chute to track
Yeah.
separately.
No.
So that makes it logistically easier.
So thank you for coming. Thank you to all the new people for coming.